So I'll be introducing him right now. So he has more than 20 years of experience in the field of leadership development, facilitation, counseling, and coaching, and has been a thought leader and speaker for various global institutes and organizations in the United States, India, and Singapore. Some of his expertise has been in working with global business leaders in the areas of HR, cultural transformation, DEI, and change leadership. His mission is to make workplaces more compassionate and human, and is passionate thought leader, especially around topics on leadership, HR, DEI, well-being, and employee engagement. He has spoken and facilitated sessions at several national and international forums across Asia and North America. He is currently a senior advisor with the Neuro Leadership Institute of Asia Pacific, where his role involves expansion of NLI's work and footprint across the region. The Neuro Leadership Institute is a global think tank and research organization that uses neuroscience to drive behavioral transformation at a scale and help organizations become high-performing, more human. He has a master's degree in education and administration and a bachelor degree in psychology, both from the United States, where he also lived and worked for 13 years before moving to Singapore in 2010, where he's based now. He is a certified counselor from the American Psychological Association and an executive coach. He currently also serves as a co-chair of the Human Capital Committee at the American Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, PMappers, join me in welcoming our speaker, Senior Advisor from NLI, Nitin Goyal.
Thank you. That was a very, very long introduction. Magandang hapon. Kamusta ka? Good. Everybody good. Well, welcome. The session after lunch is always very, very challenging. And I'm going to make it interactive a little bit for everybody. And it is going to be a different session altogether. So, tell the people who didn't come today that they missed out a great session. Because what you're going to get is completely different, and you will understand why. So, throughout the 2 days, like since yesterday, there's been a lot of talk about AI and how it needs to augment in terms of the human aspect of things, right? I'm not going to spend too much time on AI, but I'm going to talk about how do we make the human aspect more inclusive when we are working with AI and so forth. And hopefully you'll get some good takeaways from the session, right? But before we do that, I want everybody to get up from your seats because it is after lunch, all right? So go and just greet somebody, look them in the face and say, I'm very happy to be here, good to meet you. Greet two people. Great. Yeah, now you can sit down. How did that feel? When did I ask you to get up and do this? How did it feel? Energy, right? What else? Anything else? It does something to your brain, actually, right? When you move around, movement does something to the brain, right? It kicks in a lot of those dopamine and the oxytocins and so forth. So you will feel a little bit more attentive, right? And that's the idea. So make sure when we are working from home and we are working from anywhere now, that you do stand up, you do take those breaks and stuff, because that does something to the brain. All right. So let me just share with you today what we are going to talk about. Okay. Let's see if this works. So a little bit about the Institute. So our Institute, the purpose is to make organizations more human. So this theme of rehumanize is very aligned to what our Institute does, right? And we are truly the world leader in the science-based, data-driven behavior change at scale, right? So science and data both. It's not about just the science, it's about data. What do we measure? How are people changing? And so forth. And the scale is very important too. So we do stuff at very large scale. 100,000 people, like the Jollibees of the world, but also much bigger, 500,000 people. And how do you transform that in a short period of time? That's our expertise, right? Founded in 1998, the 26th year, we have a team of about 250 people across the globe. Headquarter is in the US, and I represent APAC based in Singapore. We work with 66% of the Fortune 100 companies globally, a lot in ASEAN, including some in Philippines as well, and we are research-based. So nothing is just fluffy stuff. Everything is based in research. Everything is based in science, right? So whatever I'm going to share with you is all science-based approach as well, right? Just to give you some perspectives on, okay, maybe the clicker is slow. Just to give you some perspectives on some of the change initiatives that we have been part of. Microsoft, when Satya Nadella as CEO joined Microsoft, we partnered with Microsoft in their transformation journey at that time. And you see where Microsoft is today, and I'm going to share a little bit about it later on as well. But we did that transformation, 220,000 people, right? As you can see, Procter & Gamble, with DNI specifically, with T-Mobile, which is a US telecom organization, and Kazia Pramante, which is a healthcare provider. Microsoft still, 11 years, still is a key partner with us, as you can see from Joe as well, and they love science and they love data, right? So that's very, very important and critical in terms of what we do. All right, now I want you to take out your phones and scan this Slido code. And if you cannot scan it, just go to slido.com and put in the code 2337997, right? And I want you to think of an experience, probably a recent experience if possible, where you felt excluded, right? Where you felt excluded. It could be at work, it could be at home, it could be with your neighbor, any situation recently where you felt excluded. And I want you to say not how you felt, I want you to tell me what did you feel, your emotion. What did you feel when you felt excluded? So don't key in the code, you're supposed to key in your answer in there, yeah? Very good. Rejected, frustrated, left out, sadness, alone, isolated, oppressed, alienated, disappointed, rejected is coming up big, yeah? Offended, frustrated, disrespected, okay? Yeah? So a lot of aspects on disrespected, rejected, loneliness. I think there's a session next door as well on loneliness, which is big, at all-time low globally in terms of mental health, right? Disappointed is big as well. So I want you to keep this in mind as we go through the session today, okay? Are you with me? Think of this experience where you felt excluded throughout the session today, about that emotion you felt and what you felt, right? And there is a difference between how you feel and what you feel, right? Remember, I asked you to think about what you felt, because how you feel is, okay, I was fine, you know, I felt not so good. So name the term, the emotion. That's very important from a neuroscience point of view. All right? Great. All right. Little bit of just data globally. Hayes did this survey in Asia. 43% of professionals in Asia still believe that diversity is a barrier in terms of career progression, right? And then a global survey of Hayes, again, 11,000 some people this year, so this is new, right, 2024. They said 47% said bias wasn't an issue, but 26% said bias is an issue, and it's not being addressed. 26% said bias is an issue, it's not being addressed, right? And the remaining 11% said there was, 16% said there was a bias was an issue, it was addressed, and 11% was unsure, right? And a report by Workday in Philippines recently as well said 44% said that there's a gap between what leaders say they want to do regarding diversity and inclusion and actually what they do. There's a huge, huge gap, right? And they feel very strongly that something needs to be done, right? So again, data shows that there is not enough which is being done in regards to inclusion, right? All right, 3 chapters I'm going to talk about. There is reason why there is 3. Anybody know why we talk about 3? It's embedded in neuroscience as well. 3 is a number which sticks in the brain, all right? Anything you do in your work, in HR, as people managers, try to break it down in the power of 3 to anybody, all right? People will always remember that. Don't make an exhaustive list. 3. 3 principles, 3 core values, 3 things I want you to remember. So 3 things. I'm going to talk a little bit about the brain in terms of how you need to think about individually. Then I'm going to talk about the 3 habits we are in that habit business, right? We are not in the training business. We are into cultivating habits which you and leaders and teams can activate to drive change. So I'm going to talk about what those 3 habits are based on science. And then I want you to do a commitment, right? Everybody got that little card when you entered, right? That's your inclusion action plan I want you to think about. All right. So let's talk about a little bit about the science. So the brain at a high level. So everybody take your hand, right hand or left hand, doesn't matter, and put it in the front of your forehead here, like this, right? This is your prefrontal cortex in your brain. And this is how much, exactly this size, it's the size of a card, credit card, is how much capacity your brain has to remember things, your cognitive capacity, right? So imagine, and it drains very easily, okay? So the more you do things, the exhaustive list you have is not good. People are not going to retain, right? So that's your prefrontal cortex. That's your thinking brain, right? Then you also have this other part, which is the limbic system. This is in the back side of your brain, which is an older part of the brain. And this really signals to your prefrontal cortex here that there is an issue, there is a threat. You need to watch out for those things, right? So it's really like that security officer. What you felt, remember that situation where you felt excluded? Probably the security officer, the limbic, sent the signal to your prefrontal cortex that you need to feel disappointed. You're feeling excluded, so you feel alone, those kind of things. So everybody clear? There's not a course on neuroscience or anything, but remember these things as a rule, right? The other thing I want you to remember is the brain's #1 rule is always bad is stronger than good. Bad is always stronger than good, all right? So anytime you're in a situation where you feel threatened, right? Just like physical. So I'm talking to you right now. Let's say there's a tiger or some animal which walks into the room right now. I'm going to feel threatened. The brain is going to protect me because they're going to say you are in danger, right? Same things happen in social situations. So the brain #1 rule is you're feeling threatened, it's always going to protect you. It's going to send you a signal. That means that to move towards that reward state, you have to work much more harder, all right? You have to work much more harder. And that's where the habits comes in. You have to cultivate certain habits to move towards that positive reward state. So everybody clear? All right, great. You're doing very well. So let's look at the role of leadership now. You all are people managers. You all are leaders. So we define culture, right, your organization culture, as everyday shared habits. That's the guiding hypothesis, right? It's everyday shared habits. So when I walk into your organization, right, and I see people do the same things, right, as a habit, they're doing the same things, that is your culture, right? That's everyday shared habit, whatever people are sharing. So if you say that, oh, we have a culture of feedback, I should see people giving feedback or receiving feedback as a daily habit. That's your culture, right? So the culture is everyday shared habits, right? But along with that, there is this aspect of social influence as well, right? So when you practice those everyday habits in a social context with people, they become contagious. So how many times does it happen when you see somebody else do something and then you also are tempted to do that as well? Raise of hands. Does that happen? Yeah? Or how many times are you thinking of something? Has it ever happened where you're thinking that, you know what, I want to buy a car, a Toyota Corolla, let's name it, right? And all of a sudden, when you're walking around and stuff, you start seeing Toyota Corollas. Has that happened? That's not a coincidence. That's social normative influence in the brain. The brain is already preempting you on certain things, and it's built in there. So the cars are always there. You're just paying more attention to it now. All right? So remember those things, culture, everyday shared habits, along with social normative influence. Oops, went too fast. Okay, some definitions. Everybody's probably seen these, right? Diversity is having the seat at the table. Inclusion is having that voice. And more importantly, bias is why some voices are not heard as much as others, all right? Diversity, inclusion, bias. You see, I did not put equity here, which is the E. because equity is very, very hard. In fact, in the US, they're removing the word E. The SHRM, which is the HR Professional Network, has removed equity totally because they say it's very hard. Let's just focus on diversity and inclusion first. And there is so much bias right now, especially with AI, that you cannot get to equity if you don't address the bias. That's why diversity, inclusion, bias. All right? Now, there is diversity of diversity, where is visible diversity, right? So just before this session, there was a session on disabilities and stuff. There is visible diversity, your demographics, right? Where you're from, right? I can see that, right? But then there is what? There is hidden diversity as well, right? Certain things which you don't see, right? For example, I'm colorblind. You would not know that looking at me. I cannot differentiate most of the colors at times. That's invisible diversity. And that's why we have to make a more conscious effort to understand people, all right? So there's visible diversity, there's hidden diversity. And diversity requires inclusion. Diversity requires inclusion. I always say this, if you're not actively including, you are probably unintentionally excluding. Repeat that after me. If you are not actively including, you're probably unintentionally excluding. So you understand why it is more important to make a conscious effort to include people. It is hard, but if you don't do that, you're unconsciously excluding people. So that's important. The other aspect is we generally take mental shortcuts. Remember I said the prefrontal cortex here, very small, right? So you'll generally take shortcuts. These are called mental shortcuts, right? You try to take shortcuts, and what does that do is create bias. So I always say, if you have a brain, you have a bias. Repeat that after me. If you have a brain, you have a bias. Don't let anybody tell you I am not biased, because everybody is biased. It's about how they address it. Remember, diversity, inclusion, and bias, right? And at worst, this bias will lead to that exclusion, which is what you felt when you felt excluded, right? Probably there was some bias kicking in with that other person you were dealing with, or that group of people. All right? Now let me share with you the experiment. Has anybody seen this experiment? This was done years ago in the 1990s with Naomi Eisenberger in Stanford, right? So a volunteer was asked in, and they were told that you're playing this video game online with 2 other people. And all you have to do is pass the ball to these people. So as you can see, one person passes it to the other person, and that person passes it to the subject, and henceforth, right? So this went on for about 10-15 minutes. And after 10-15 minutes, Naomi switched it, where the only 2 people were passing the ball to each other, with the volunteer just watching what's happening, right? Now, you can see what the person started to feel. Much of the same things you felt when you wrote down disappointed, alone, frustrated, disappointed, all of that, right? Well, even after the volunteer was told that it was a video game, right, and you were not actually playing real people, it did not matter. That person was still feeling the same emotions, right? And guess what? I'm going to tell you another new research which has come out. Physical pain. So if you get hurt right now, right? So let's say you get hurt. You feel pain, right? You take medication to elevate or to help you improve with the pain, right? Social pain is the exact same thing. So again, at Stanford or Berkeley, I don't remember, they did this experiment where they gave 2 subjects Tylenol, or Panadol, or whatever to elevate the pain if they had physical pain. And they gave the same medication to the person who was feeling excluded, just like you guys were. And guess what? That person who was feeling the social pain also started to feel better by taking the medicine. So the brain region in your brain doesn't differentiate between social pain and physical pain. Think about that. Next time you're in a meeting or you're with a group, think about when you're not including people, those people are feeling the same amount of pain like you would or like they would feel physical pain. This is research, right? So I'm not making this up. All right. Now, take up the Slido again, right? This time I want you to think about in your organization, in your roles as people managers, right? What's the biggest barrier currently you face in promoting inclusion? What is the biggest barrier? What's stopping you from creating that inclusive culture, right? Bias. Thanks for being honest. Yes, that is true. Culture is a big one. Yes. Miscommunication, leaders, management, experience, lack of education. Yeah. Lack of acceptance. Yeah. Geography, beliefs. Yes, beliefs, all of that are part of your bias as well. Company culture, miscommunication. Yep. This is a great list. But guess what? Again, culture stands out, right? And culture is everyday shared habits, right? So what are you doing? What are people doing in your organization every single day? Think about that for a second, right? Because you have to address that. Exclusion can lead to some of these things. I'm not going to call these out. You all probably know some of these things, right? But there is a decreased sense of well-being. Again, they're talking about loneliness next door. It does lead to that if you're not including people. It also reduces your thinking process, right? So think about that situation. Go back. Think about that situation where you feel excluded, right? Did you start to think also that maybe your thinking also started to reduce a bit because you were feeling excluded, right? Your cognitive capacity, your memory, all of that is connected as well to what you felt. All right. Now, how does that connect to collaborative work? So I'm going to share a model just very after this, but I want you to think of this. So as your threat increases, that means you're feeling threatened in a situation. It could be your boss. It could be a situation where you're feeling excluded, right? Your thinking capacity reduces, your perception field of view reduces, your creativity reduces, and your collaboration capacity also reduces, right? Think about that. When you are collaborating with people, you're trying to work with others, all of that happens if you're putting them in a threat state. That means you're not including them, right? So we need to make conscious effort again to move toward that toward state or to the reward state. So I'm going to share with you a flagship model which we came up with about 20 years ago. It's called the SCARF model. Anybody heard of the SCARF model? Just like a scarf? No? Okay. So SCARF has 5 aspects to it, right? Status. So are you high or low in status? So when you are with a boss, whose status is high? Boss, right? So that's status. Certainty. Do you have enough certainty? Do you know enough in a situation? That's certainty. That's the C. How much do you know? Autonomy. Do you have choices, right? A lot of organizations now are pushing back and say, everybody come back to work, full time, meaning in the office. You're going to lose autonomy, right? Because your people are telling you what to do. You don't have choices. A. R is, do I feel belong, like these group goals, right? Are people asking you about your ideas? How are you doing? Check-ins and stuff. That relatedness, that's R. And F is fairness. Are you treated fairly in opportunities, in discussions, in promotions? All of that is fairness. That's a little bit of equity as well, okay? So SCARF, status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, fairness, all right? This is an amazing model being used by millions and millions of leaders globally. Lots of organizations use it for different contexts. I'm going to be just talking about it from an inclusion context, but this is being used by an aspect of interpersonal relationships. It can also be reused for change. When you're managing change with people, it can be that as well. So, status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. What I want you to do now is as you think about the SCARF model, think of that experience when you felt excluded, all right? Remember that experience I just told you about early on when you had to think about that experience? Okay, find a partner next to you, and I want you to talk to them in terms of what do you think, which SCARF domains, and we call them domains, drivers. It's not a personality assessment. These are drivers or domains. Which SCARF do you think played out at that time when you felt excluded, all right? And then what did you notice about your own capacity, your collaboration capacity, and so forth, all right? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, chat up with your person next door. If it's 3 of you chat up. All right, go. All right. Maybe let's come back. You can continue this conversation afterwards as well. You just found new buddies, and you can talk to each other after that as well. All right. So, let's get some voices. So, who would like to share about the scarf drivers which showed up, and how did you feel, right? Which group or tiers? Okay. And please share your name as well.
All right, I'm Zyrus. So based on our discussion, so the domains that we encountered, so there's status, certainty, and fairness. So usually when there are gaps in terms of the job level, the way they decide, they don't include you in the loop. You are not aware of what's happening. On the other side, there are people with higher job levels, and you have the lower one, but you are doing the same job. So in terms of fairness, so it's not there. Yeah, and also the politics in the organization, which is also relevant. Yep.
Very good. Let's give it up for Jami. Okay. Who else? Let's get maybe one more. One more? Any other group? Okay. Maybe you can use that mic there.
Hi, good afternoon. Well, for the first question, what scarf domains were involved? Well, at first I was looking at, number one, the status. Am I respected or valued? But then again, when I think about it, it seems as if all five of these, they intertwine together. They interrelate. So, am I respected or valued? So I question. So just like your sharing earlier, you cited favoritism. For me, it was it's in an organization, a very big organization, and I think all of you can relate that there's some kind of a bubble still. No? We have this leveling, but there's some kind of an invisible bubble that you have to really insert yourself into. So yes, that would come in there. So am I valued, respected? And then it follows, am I really in the loop? Are we really in the loop? I don't know what's happening. The people involved here are my level and higher than me. And then, am I given choices and control? Of course not, because I'm not in the loop. And then, do I belong? Of course not, because it all goes back.
Connects.
And then, at the end of the day, is there fairness? Do we have this credit or opportunity? Do I get the credit and opportunities that others do? Of course not, because we all go back to the letter S, the scarf. So for me, it's a ripple effect of what happens. It can be any of your examples, and I think it's impossible for just one domain to be touched on without touching the other one. So for the second one, what did you notice about your cognition, collaboration, and ability to perform well? Well, I'd like to take the word of my partner here, Anne. It's reduced. If not reduced, it's limited.
Yep.
It's like it's a fountain, and you put a glass on top of it. So you're not really going to flow
Yep.
up, and you're just until there. So no growth. Yeah, you just stay there forever.
Stagnant, yeah.
Yeah. So
Great. Thank you. Let's give it up for her. There you go. I just want to also clarify that there's no right and wrong with scarf, all right? So you would always naturally gravitate. If you look at your own, you will tend to, like generally, if I'm working with people in groups, I always am high and want relatedness and fairness. That's my high scarf drivers or domains, right? So in general situations, there's no right and wrong, and sometimes with situations, it might change as well. The important thing is that you're aware of what the other person's scarf is so that you don't put them in that threat state. You want to be in that reward state, right? So if I'm working with my boss and he's really high on status, I want to make sure that he feels valued and respected, even if I disagree, because he's high on it. And if he knows I'm high on relatedness, then he will try to ask me about ideas and try to just involve me in that process as well. May not give me autonomy, maybe, but he'll still keep me in that loop and give me all of that. So it all works together. You're right. It is all connected. There's no right and wrong. But you generally tend to lean towards some high in terms of that. 2 or 3 generally is there. There is also an assessment on this as well. So later on, you can contact me, and I can also tell you the link for the assessment as well. All right. Let's move to chapter 2. Right. So everybody clear in terms of how, from a neuroscience point of view, you work, threat, reward state, right? If we are not actively including, we are unconsciously, unintentionally excluding. That's right. And if you have a brain, you have a bias. All right, good. Everybody gets full marks for keeping good attention. All right, again, there are 3 habits, right? This is years and years and years of our research. We do research on particular these things. We study people. Our scientists study this all the time. So with everything, growth mindset, empathy, psychological safety, connections, feedback, all of this, we have 15 to 16 solutions which all have 3 habits, right? But these are the 3 habits for inclusion, right? And I want you to just give you a preview. We're not going to dive deep. And we do this as interventions, long-term, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, sprints with organizations, so that in 1 year, the entire organization is practicing these habits. So let's dive into it. Habit number 1 is finding common ground. This connects to the SCARF domain of relatedness. When you're able to find common ground, guess what? You find the similarities, not differences, similarities in people. Finding common ground. Let's see, what does that mean? So am I understood and accepted by those around me, right? And you give those reward signals, so we call these SCARF signals. So when you are trying to create that common ground, you're paying attention to people, listening to understand. Not just listening, you are listening. Like right now, hopefully you're paying attention and listening to understand. That's important. Showing empathy is important, right? When you're trying to find common ground. If you're not tuned in, you cannot be building that common ground. And lastly, asking questions. Can I just understand that this is what you are asking for? If people are doing that, they're trying to find common ground with you, all right? So those 3 things. Now, some tactics, right? So be warm to people, generally, right? By appearing approachable and showing empathy is important when you're trying to build that SCARF domain and signal. Uncovering shared experiences by demonstrating curiosity. Oh, tell me about this. Oh, you're looking different today. Tell me, you did your hair differently. What is it? You're trying to be curious in a very polite way, but you're trying to build that common ground and understanding with people, right? And then developing shared goals. Let's work on this together. We are a team. I know we don't agree, but let's still discuss this together. That also leads to finding that common ground, right? Now, think about this. I want you to do a reflection. This is about common ground, right? Being warm. Asking how to pronounce somebody's name. How many times does that happen? I see that here a lot in Philippines. I see that a lot in Asia as well. People like to just butcher people's names, but they don't want to understand, tell me how your name is pronounced. In fact, they'll come up with nicknames and they say, just call me Bob. No, Bob is not your name. Tell me your real name, right? How many times that happens to you? So if you're not doing that, you're not building common ground with people, because a person's name is the person's identity. It means a lot. So I'm Nitin, right? Don't call me Nitin, or people have called me Nightingale, right? Like, butchered my name, Kitten, or whatever. It's Nitin. You ask me, I'll tell you. It's a palindrome, N-I-T-I-N, N-I-T-I-N. You can spell it both ways. It's easy, but if you take that time to do that. So that's important, right? Acknowledging that a peer was interrupted during a meeting. How many times does that happen? Did anybody watch that Air Asia famous video which went around where Tony Fernandes, the CEO, was in this meeting, and a lot of his leadership team was as well, and there was a woman leader, I think she was from Thailand, if I'm not wrong, and she was treated with a lot of disrespect in the meeting, saying, why didn't you come prepared? This other person was just challenging her openly, right? Tony did not say anything. Neither did any of the leaders, right? So that doesn't show that you're being warm and building common ground. Because if there is something you see, you ought to do something or say something. So if somebody is interrupted, or you saw that somebody wanted to say something, but they didn't, you say something about it. That's building common ground as well, right? Empathy is important. Complimenting a colleague after a presentation as well, right? Sometimes you cannot do that at the time, but later on, right? Thanking someone for a disagreement. We have forgotten how to disagree with people. We'll just say, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'll do this. I don't agree, but we have forgotten how to debate with people, right? So that's important. How do you thank somebody that, you know what, I disagree with you, but I see your point, and I think maybe we agree to disagree, and we can just take that common ground and stuff, right? And greeting everybody and not being biased again towards certain people and asking them. I see that a lot too. There are a few people, and you'll always ask them, how was your day? What did you do? Hey, what about the rest? They're not in your favorite list, but they're still in the meeting. So are you doing that as well? So it's just common examples to just reflect on that being warm aspect. All right? Habit 2, right? Lifting people up. This is one of my favorite habits. Remember, these are habits that you have to do every day. This is not about I do it once a while. If you want to change the culture, if you want to really be inclusive, you've got to practice this every day, right? Lifting people up. Connects to status and connects to fairness from a scarf lens. Let's deep dive into it. Okay, status. Am I being respected and valued? That young lady was asking earlier. Thanking others for their contributions is again sending that scarf positive signal, right, towards them. Fairness. Did I get the credit and opportunities that I deserve to? Recognizing other people's work, explaining how everyone is included, right? Yes, I want to make this clear that everybody is included in this, and this is why, right? So that's lifting people up. Now let's look at some tactics, right? Make it safe for people to speak up. Are you doing that every single day as a habit, right? Recognizing mistakes are part of the process, but learning from them and bouncing back as well and creating that platform, right? I just wrote in LinkedIn 2 days ago or yesterday, I don't remember, but I said creating safe spaces is easy, okay? We can always say, hey, my office is always open. You can come and talk to me. But still, people don't come and talk to that person. Why? Why is that, right? They're scared. Status comes in, right? Right? So there's not that common ground they've built, so they don't have that trust capital with them as well, right? And then, if, let's say, they do come to you, you have created that safe space, and somebody's talking to you and stuff, but then you don't do anything about it. That loses the trust completely. Right? Then don't say that you have created a safe space. So it's safe space plus action. Do something. Look at the example of Boeing, the crisis they're going through. They created this wonderful culture of speaking up years ago. Wonderful culture. Everybody was speaking. Their engagement scores were high. Everybody was sharing, feedback, all of this and stuff. And guess what? The leaders didn't want to do anything. They just turned a blind eye. And they didn't want to change anything. In fact, when you spoke up, you were fired. And somebody who was a whistleblower also died recently in these last few months because they didn't want all of that to happen. So that's not creating a culture of speaking up because you're not taking actions about it. So be cognizant about those things, right? Asking for contributions, seeking differences is important as well, right? In lifting people up. And again, giving opportunities which are equitable for people, right? Don't always give it to certain people. Give it to the people who are quiet as well, right? Or ask people who are quiet as well about their opinions and stuff and why they're not speaking and stuff. That's very, very important, right? Lifting people up. And this is very, very important in a post-COVID world where we are working remotely or working from home. Third habit, help create clarity, right? Help create clarity, right? We don't have clarity in today's context, a lot of ambiguity. And you're supposed to just guess what's happening. Ambiguity, right? How can I read your mind? I don't know what's happening, right? It connects to certainty and also autonomy in terms of scarf. Let's look at it at a glance. So, certainty is all about what's expected of me. Am I clear? This gentleman here in the front talked about that. Roles were not clear. I don't know my job. What am I supposed to do? How many times you or somebody got hired and stuff, there was one thing which was said on the job description and there's another thing you're doing. And you're like, it's not aligned at all, right? And I did not ask that question, right? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Is anybody doing the checks with me, right? And lastly, what is the impact? When I don't know something, then it is having an impact on my people, right? Am I thinking about that consciously? That's very, very important. And we can send these reward signals by giving clear expectations, communicating transparently, right? Openly, right? Even if it's not the right thing to do, right? Even if you feel that you made a mistake, but acknowledging that mistake openly, right? Autonomy, what choices do I have? Am I being given choices and control, right? And reward signals is giving spaces for everybody to make their own decisions, right? Like, do you make your own decisions, right? If you want to come back, like, okay, maybe we do 2 days a week, but which 2 days is up to you. And we give you those choices, right? So it is little bit of autonomy, right? We're not saying give all autonomy, everything, no. But little bit of autonomy helps in creating that habit. And then let's look at this quickly. This is called the clarity pendulum, right? So if you give too much certainty, what happens? From a scarf point of view, if you give too much certainty to somebody, I'm just giving you so much certainty, I'm just telling you this, right? Then guess what will happen? I will not have autonomy because you're just telling me what to do. How many bosses do that? They always tell you, do this, do this. Okay, I want this report, I want this deadline, this, right? But then at the same time, if I give you too much autonomy, what happens? I may be doing completely something different, which I'm supposed to do, and stuff. So there's this pendulum, there's a little middle area there, and you have to find that sweet spot where there's a little bit of certainty, and there's a little bit of autonomy, right? And SSG, right? If you don't remember anything, remember this, SSG. Everything you do, write, say, always do it from an SSG lens. SSG stands for succinct. Don't say long sentences, don't write long emails, long paragraphs, succinct. Remember power of 3, break it down, 3 points, 1, 2, 3. This is what I'm telling you. Make it succinct. 1 line, 2 lines, if you want to say something. Second, specific. Specific to the situation, right? Don't talk about something which happened last year or 2 years ago. Make it very specific to, I observed this is what happened. I want you to do 1, 2, 3, boom. Very specific. And lastly, generous. It should be able to generate insights, the aha moments for people. So my boss or somebody, my manager is asking me to do this. Aha, I get it. Why he's asking me to do this? Because he's trying to build relatedness, or he's trying to show us that we are aligned to the strategy. So those aha moments need to be created. So every time you're drafting an email to somebody, or you're trying to tell somebody to do, think about SSG. It has to be in SSG format. What you say and what you write. All right? Tactics to create clarity, keep everybody in the loop, over-communicate. If possible, that's fine. And proactively share information, right? Explain your choices, so always back that up, right? And give people a feeling of control, like they can make their own choices. So this is the clarity I've given you, but you make your own choices, but keep me informed in terms of what's happening. All right? So let's quickly summarize. Oh, I just wanted to share this example, yes. So Microsoft, remember I talked to you about this? Talking about clarity, that's one of their values and one of the principles which we helped create 11 years ago. So it's energy, clarity, success. Or clarity, energy, success. These are Microsoft principles which we help create from a neuroscience lens with them. And they practice these habits every single day. Every single day, Microsoft employees ask, am I creating clarity? Am I generating energy? And am I delivering success for the business? Every single day, all right? And guess what happens? This was 11 years ago, guys. We know Microsoft's market cap is 4 times more than this today. But at that time, under this framework, with that many people, it grew significantly. So simplicity and this power of 3 from a framework point of view works, right? Science and data. So just wanted to share that quick case. All right. Now I want you to write your own inclusion plan. Now, one of the things which we teach people in terms of these habits is something called an if-then plan. If a situation X happens, then Y, I would do this. So it's called an if-then plan. They are very, very powerful. Again, they connect to your prefrontal cortex and to your thinking brain, right? So situation and action become linked in your mind. Examples, if a new team member joins my team, then I will ask them to share something about themselves during our one-on-one, right? If I notice a team member being quiet in a meeting, then I will invite them to share their thoughts. Oops. If I'm assigning tasks to my team, then I will provide my thinking behind my decisions. Did you see SSG here? Yeah? These are not long sentences. These are 2 lines. If this, then this. All right? So now I want you to take a few minutes, and I want you, in view of everything that you are experiencing in your roles and stuff, I want you to write your own if-then plans in terms of your commitment, right? You have those cards. If you don't have a pen to write and stuff, put it on your phone, but write it somewhere, and then we'll do a quick sharing and end. All right? I'll share the example so that it's easy. All right, anybody who is done? It doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay, right? Can you raise your hand so that I know? Okay, a few. All right. Who would like to share? Maybe some new voices. Would you like to share? Okay, you can use the microphone. Introduce yourself as well.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sam. My inclusion action plan is if I'm giving feedback to my team member, I will also give them time to share their own feedback about me and actively listen.
Excellent, excellent if-then plan. Wonderful if-then plan. Well done. Let's give it a round of applause to her. Yeah. I'll tell you, this reminds me, when I work with organizations and they say, well, we have a very huge feedback culture in our organization. I say, tell me about it. And they're like, oh, we know how to give feedback, we're giving feedback. Okay, one more thing I want you to know. If your model of feedback is about giving feedback, it's the wrong model. The model needs to be about asking feedback. Because if you start asking people feedback, eventually when you start giving people feedback, they will respond in a very positive way. So I love that if then plan, because she just will use that opportunity when somebody does that to also ask for feedback. And that sends positive reward signals to the brain. All right. Who else? I saw some hands. Did you raise your hand? No. Okay.
So my inclusion action plan would be, if I assign something to my team, then I will ensure to ask if they understood my instruction.
Let's give a round of applause to her as well. So, what is she doing? Which part of the scarf is she doing in that situation? With clarity, right? So that there is clarity around it and stuff, right? So that's very important. Okay, let's do one more, last one. Last one. One more? Who would like to share? Come on, it's okay. This is what happens in workplace also, right? You're asking people and nobody says anything. Then what happens, right? Yeah.
Hello. So my name is Arthur, and I'm currently working in the AI field, so there's a lot of uncertainty. So my if-then is, if I am working on something innovative with my team, I will lead by example, share my thought process on key decisions, and seek input from my teammates on their own ideas on building new solutions with AI.
Very good. Good job. Just you can make it a little bit more succinct, that's all. Yeah, that's it. But well done, well done. So let's give a round of applause to everybody. This is a work in progress. But if we continue to have if-then plans, then they solidify the habits we are trying to create. And remember, culture is everyday shared habits, all right? I just wanted to share, remember, I talked about bias early on as well, right? So remember when the internet first came in, right? What was the term people used to use? Garbage in, gigo. Garbage in, garbage out. Used to hear that, right? I now say is bias in, bias out. There's so much talk about AI, and AI to certain things is great. But when it comes to people, it's dangerous because there's a lot of bias. Talent acquisition, talent development, whatever it is, right? So this is our own way. Niles is our human side of AI, which we have developed and stuff. And Niles is really exactly works like any other chatbot, but we have taken all of our research in terms of neuroscience into it, so reduce the bias as much as possible. It's not zero, but it's reduced it a bit. So if you're interested to know more about Niles, do let me know, right? And with that, I want to thank you for the session and your attention, more importantly. And I would just end with this quote from one of my favorite poets, Maya Angelou. We all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry, and we must understand that all threads of the tapestry are equal, no matter what their color, right? And that is inclusion, right, for you, all right? Do connect with me on LinkedIn, and, happy to take some questions. Yeah, all right.
Again, let's give another round of applause to Nitin for that very wonderful presentation. I think the buzzword that we have this afternoon is succinct. Succinct. Ayan. Alright. You have to concur in session. Narinig niyo ating kabila. So, good afternoon again. We are opening the floor for at least one or two questions from our participants here. Maybe you want to ask Nitin anything based on the topic, based on our concurrent session. Anyone can go on the microphone. We're giving actually Mon, special Mon, so thank you, Mon, for those who will be asking questions. So maybe we had one or two from the team or anyone. Maybe on our online participants, do you have any questions that we can read based on the presentation of the team? We don't have. Okay. Any questions from this row? Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm asking from somebody who's trying to, promote DE&I in our company, especially when it comes to biases. So Leaders, based on our experience, usually have a certain sense of pride. So sometimes it's difficult for them to be vulnerable and say that I do have a bias, even though everybody around them can clearly see that. So maybe from a neuroscience perspective, where can we start getting them connected to that, that thing that you have a brain, you have a bias, especially for leaders with a certain sense of pride, yeah.
Yeah. Great question. I think it's very hard sometimes, and it goes with egos. Yeah, a lot of leaders have egos, and it's beyond my ego. So how can I say that I have a bias or I was wrong, and those kind of situations? What we see in practice is a lot of times it's just the awareness of different kinds of biases, right? And if you look at from a neuroscience point of view, we've pointed out there are 5 different kinds of biases. We call it the seeds kind of an approach, which stands for different things. So the awareness is one thing, but the other thing which helps with biases is a lot of storytelling, right? So if people are openly sharing experiences, you don't have to talk about the person, the leader, but in front of the leader, if they start to share stories related with biases and the impact it had on them. Remember the activity which I just early on did, that is quite powerful in the person realizing, oh my God, okay, maybe I am the problem, and maybe I should say something or recognize something. So I would say awareness coupled with powerful storytelling really helps break that bias. Yeah, you're welcome. And she gets the prize.
We're opening the floor for one final question if you have. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm just wondering if this is going to fit, but in organizational changes, for example, where there is a change in leadership, a change of direction, and this person is trying to think of who are the people who are going to join my army, right? And for those of us who are at not the bottom, but at that level where we are not the first people in the inner circle, and would like to expand our experiences and responsibilities so that we could also grow within the organization. How can we? I don't know if this is applicable. That's why I'm trying to check whether some of this research that we've had and this framework that we have can be applicable in terms of getting in the game or getting that sense of being included in the consideration for growth.
Yep. So great question again, and I'll go ahead turn it back to SCAF, right? Because anytime you're going through changes, whether it's change of leadership, and you're absolutely right, people either bring in their own people or they'll try to go ahead with certain people they like and so forth. SCAF applies in that aspect, right? So again, if you're creating that awareness with people around SCAF, and I'll tell you one magic thing which we do at NLI, and it works beautifully, right? So it's very hard to tell people that, what you just now said upset me. Or it's very hard to say, whatever you said, I feel disappointed. Because you're always afraid, especially in Filipino culture. It's very hard to say that because you're like, I don't want to upset this person. So we use SCAF as an adjective to say that. So I will walk up to you and I'll say, you know what? You scarfed me by doing that day, right? Let me tell you why. And it works wonderfully. It creates that little bit of the neutral way of you connecting with that person, right? So again, awareness of SCAF, when you are having that, so if you create that momentum with people, and you can start with your own team. You don't have to go up to the senior management or the leadership team and stuff. If you're doing that, and again, if you share them stories about how that is helping build that, they'll start to see the impact it's having on you, and they'll start to slowly embed that into the entire culture as well, right? So I think it's a very safe, that's why I love SCAF, because it's a very safe and it's a very applicable way of connection, of managing change, of understanding people, and driving inclusion as well, right? So that's going to be my words of wisdom. Thank you.
Okay, let's give another round of applause to Nitin. We'll just give you a quick synthesis on the presentation of Nitin. So, neuroscience backs diversity. Diverse teams enhance creativity and empathy by activating unique brain circuits. So inclusion enhances well-being. Inclusive environments are essential for fostering psychological safety and boosting performance. Our psychological traits aren't set in stone. They can grow through dedicated effort, the right environment, and smart use of strategies that promote brain adaptability like neuroplasticity. It's clear, embracing diversity and inclusion isn't just good policy, it's a cornerstone of tapping into everyone's full potential. By linking personal efforts with supportive environments and adaptable strategies, we're not just working together, we're growing together, making our organization a lively, inclusive home for everyone. So again, thank you very much. This has been your concurrent session number 8. Yes, before that, we'll just call on, of course, PIMA past President Ellen Folido to give a token to our speaker, Nitin. Again, palakpakan naman natin the very gorgeous Miss Ellen. Good afternoon, Miss Ellen. And then we'll be asking everyone to join us here in front for a group photo op. Can we ask everyone to please join us here after PP Ellen gives our token? We just close this, PP Ellen. Yes, yes. Or isa pa. CPP. We'll have a group photo op with everyone here on in front po. So I'd like to request everyone to please join us here for a photo op, a group photo op with it.
Let's do a 0.5, guys.
I'll follow you. If you have other questions for Nitin, you can ask him on LinkedIn.